everything you need to know to get your RAM running at the highest clocks possible. Hey Internet, Gordon Young with PCWorld, coming to you from Computex 2023 from Patriot's booth. And I have with me Shannon Robb. I've known Shannon a long time. He's one of the most switched on guys I know in the industry, especially when we're talking about memory. And the reason I'm here with Patriot and talking to Shannon is because I'm just a dumbass and I need to know, how do I get my motherboard to run the clocks at the highest clocks or the tightest timings I can? A lot of people that they think they can buy a motherboard, they can buy the RAM and think they can do it, but I want to know from you if that really works. So like for me, I'm kind of under the impression that I need to buy a 2 DIMM board. Instead of a 4 DIMM board, I go to 2 DIMMs. I can now run a higher clocks. Is that necessary? What are the advantages, disadvantages of that?
Well, it depends on what you're defining as higher clocks, because you can run on 4 DIMM boards like up to 7400 rather easy on most boards on 13th gen Intel platforms. Now, if you're talking AMD, we all know the cutoff on EXPO is pretty much 6200. That's about where it's going to be happy at. But if you're talking Intel, about 7400 on a 4 DIMM board, most of them will be pretty safe. And the great part is like our DDR5 comes with 3 profiles. So even if you pick up a 7400 kit, it'll have a 7200 and a 7000 profile just to ensure you have a fallback for stability and compatibility. But it is true, if you're pushing for like world record overclocks or to push, let's say, above 7600 up to 8000 like our Extreme 5, you're definitely going to want something, a 2 DIMM board or a 1 DIMM per channel board, 1 DPC. That would be something like the Apex, the Z790 Dark Kingpin, the Z790 Tachyon, or even like the little MSI ITX board. Most boards that only have 1 slot per channel is going to run a higher speed, because once you have 4 DIMM slots, it basically, whether T topology or daisy chain, you have an extra trace that basically leads to that other slot that can screw up the timings, or not the actual memory timings, but the timing of signals. So it basically chops off the top anywhere from 200 to 600 megahertz of your available, or I should say mega transfers, or 2 to 600 mega transfers off of the top of what your capability of speed would be. Some 4 DIMM boards, like for example, I have actually tried on the Z790 Classified. It's a 4 DIMM board, but since it's got that rotated layout with the DIMM slots very close, those can actually run up to 8000 with really good stability. But it's going to be tough still, because once you get up to that speed, you do got to have a good processor and a good internal memory controller, or IMC.
Yeah, because that is the other thing, because a lot of consumers, they see, I go out and buy this 8000 kit, that's all I got to do. There's more too, right? There's the CPU quality is mattering here, the IMC is mattering. How much of a difference does it matter? Should I be concerned? Like, I've been told by some vendors, like, I think they were joking, but it sounded pretty bad, that like 1 out of 100 Core i9s may hit 8000.
Then I have the best luck in the world, because I have binned a large quantity of chips at this point, because all of our memory is actually hand tested on systems. So we do bin a lot of chips to try them, and out of a large quantity, I will tell you that up to around 7800, pretty much all of them will run. And then you have a very small quantity, I would say probably in the single digit range, that won't run 8000. And then once you get to like 8200 or like 8400, you'll start to see that obviously exponentially increase. But that also is affected by everything from the silicon quality of the IMC, even to the thermals you're using. If your IMC is getting warm because you're running the full 32 threads on a 13900K, it's gonna heat up that IMC, which means the ability for it to push harder is gonna go lower. So the better cooling you have, but then you also have BIOS support. Let's say you have a good 2 DIMM board. Still, you got to have a great BIOS, and those are constantly being tuned. So you may go from running only 8000 to 8200 with a simple BIOS update.
So, but it sounds like cooling does matter, because I never thought about that. If you're running, say, a lower end air cooler, it might not do as well as a custom loop or a CLC for.
Think of it the same as core overclocking. Basically, you're overclocking the memory controllers controlling or dealing with that overclock you're applying to the memory. It has to deal with those transactions. So just like when you overclock your core, once you reach a certain thermal limit, it stops clocking well. Well, once you start getting that CPU hotter, like with a, I don't want to say cheaper, but a more mainstream air cooler, you'll notice that something like that, once the CPU starts to get warmer, you'll start to see a very precipitous fall off of your available high memory speeds.
Okay. Actually thinking about, this is a question I get a lot from people. How much does QVL matter? So if I had a friend recently, he sent me a message, hey, I'm a believer in QVL now. I just bought off the QVL list, and he felt that was enough to make him safe for the memory he had selected. Is that going to be true, or?
For the most part, a QVL is actually a very safe bet. That's why we do our own internal QVL. One of the biggest problems, I think, is just how they're validated. Because we go through very stringent testing to ensure, like if we QVL a board, we know 100%, like we test even some of the worst CPUs to ensure it'll run that speed. So that's kind of where we land on that. As far as XMP certification, that's even a tougher one because you can self-certify, or depending on how the process works. We have a very close relationship with all of our partners, whether it's AMD, Intel, even our board partners. We ship them DIMMs as well so that they can test them and validate them in the same way, because they have more tools as far as the motherboard side to work with than we do, obviously, because we're a memory, we build in-house all of our memory, but still we don't build motherboards. So a lot of the internal knobs and switches that they have, we don't necessarily have access to.
But some vendors self-report.
Well,
that's like me giving my own grade in school. Right?
Well, I mean, reality is, I can put anything on our website. I could say that the 8000 runs on a DDR3 board. What's to stop us from saying that? But at the end of the day, I try to work with our partners and make sure that they fully can say that, hey, these run well on our system. Because us saying it, that's great, but that's like me saying that that kit will hit 15,000 megatransfers. That's why we send them to overclockers so they can show you. Just like when you asked me, you said, how will it go? I said, I'll send you a set, you tell me. I don't want to be that marketing guy that makes this like bogus claim of, oh, it'll do all this crazy stuff. I want you to show people. I want you to show these people what they do.
Okay. The other big question is about EXPO, XMP, Intel's XMP, AMD's EXPO. Do I really need to care as a consumer? Should I I think most people are going, I have AMD, I buy EXPO. I have Intel, I buy XMP. Do they have to worry about it?
That's actually a fun question, because most boards have a translation layer, so that if you have like an XMP kit, it will be able to translate most of that to apply a profile that's safe. However, it's not going to be optimal. For example, like Asus has AMP. It does a really good job of translating the XMP into an EXPO-like thing, but you'll notice the EXPO modules tend to be, you'll notice they have better latency, lower nanoseconds, overall better performance, because it's specifically tuned for that platform. Now that's what we did in order to ensure we avoid that kind of situation, all the way up to 6200 on any of our kits that we offer. DDR5 have both XMP and EXPO profiles. So whichever type of system you have, you've got it covered. But if you do, let's say you have an XMP DDR5 kit and you decided to pick up an AM5 system for whatever reason, you could plug them in. You're going to run just fine. Are you going to lose a modicum of performance, maybe a couple percent? Maybe. But at the end of the day, I mean, you're going to lose that from a variation of other things, including thermals anyway.
Huh, okay.
So that's not necessarily the end of the world. Well, I mean, unless you're looking for that upper echelon of every little tiny bit of performance, but then at that point you're going what, with a TEC liquid cooler, you're going with a phase change just to make sure you get maximum performance. Otherwise, you're giving something up along the way.
Okay. Another question, because it kind of brings up the order that you buy stuff.
Okay.
So I think most consumers buy the CPU, then they buy the motherboard, or they buy it all at one. And then you get the RAM. The RAM is always like the last thing that goes, sorry, RAM vendor. The RAM is always the last thing that you pick. Do you think that's kind of backwards? Like maybe you should buy the RAM and then sort of build your board and other purchases around it if you're trying to get those really high clocks or tight timings?
Funny enough, actually, I agree with buying RAM at a later stage in it, simply because RAM is always evolving. So while, let's say, for example, I know plenty of people who, they buy parts in stages. So hey, let's say, for example, I'm going to buy my CPU this week and next month I'm buying a motherboard, whatever. During that time, you could have a better compatibility RAM kit. Your board could have got a BIOS update that supports better RAM, whatever it may be. We always have new options coming out that may be even better. So I'm all for buying things in the correct positioning, because most motherboards, once they're out, they're out. You're going to get BIOS updates, but they're not going to release the next board for that same CPU that you're suddenly going to go gaga over and want to change. So RAM is one that you can absolutely wait a little bit until you're ready to build. You could buy it let's say off Amazon and have it show up the next day and build your system. That's totally fine. It's not going to hurt anything, because, unless stock runs out, then that kind of sucks. But otherwise, it gives you options, because RAM is probably one of the most flexible options you have. There's a lot of speed bins. There's a lot of options, whether it's RGB, non-RGB, depending on your aesthetic. Let's say, for example, like our new Elite 5, they come in white, right? We just released that. Let's say you were building up a system and you were just about to buy that memory. You come in and see that and you go, okay, I'm going to wait 3 weeks for it to come out because my system's all white themed. Now I've got that. That kind of thing is hugely beneficial, because RAM, like I said, is constantly variable. It's constantly moving. It's in flux.
And that actually brings up a really good point, because if you dive into the depths of the internet enough, the memory people you'll get into the people that start talking about their die of the month flavor of the month die.
I thought you were going to bring up Reddit or something.
No, not Reddit. I love Reddit. I actually love Reddit.
You said depths of internet. I'm thinking like, what's going to happen?
But I love Reddit because, but again, you get people like, I like this die, I like that die, you need that die. Should a regular person care about it? What's the actual impact of the caring about the die?
If you're looking to do tweaking and tuning, then absolutely you're going to want to consider things like die. If you're building a gaming rig, honestly, buy the spec that's going to match your setup and you're going to be golden. Unless you're looking to tweak, tune, overclock, push the limits, whatever it may be. For example, DDR5 started with M die. And you know, most of those go around, let's say, 6200, maybe even 6800. Good enough for most people, especially 12th gen platforms. Let's say you bought a 12th gen platform, you upgrade to 13th, that M die is going to run great on 13th gen. Now let's say you're buying a 13th gen platform, Apex, and you're looking to break world records. Then you're absolutely going to want something based on A die, because that's going to be your best opportunity to really jump up. And now you've got some new dies coming out that are the non-standard, which is, you know, the new 3096, I believe, die versus the 2048. So now you're seeing the 24 and 48 gig modules. That's going to change things up a bit. But in reality, unless you're doing some overclocking, tweaking, and tuning, if you're plugging it in and setting EXPO or XMP and playing games, die choice really isn't going to matter for you. It's not going to be the end-all, tell-all for any of your real performance. The only thing it's really going to affect, once again, a modicum, we're talking single-digit, couple percent on like your FPS values, or unless you're doing heavy number crunching, maybe you might see a small percentage difference. But let's be real. Most people that we're talking to right now, they're going to be playing their games, they're going to be enjoying them. And you know what, feel free to disagree, guys. I'm down, I'm cool with that. But at the end of the day, reality is, if you can buy a kit, set its profile, and run it, for the most people, it's going to be perfectly fine. Right. If you want to turn the knobs and you're looking to do crazy overclocks, you pretty much already know what you're buying.
Yeah.
Because if you're doing that level, either you're learning it, which means you're reading a lot of forums, a lot of people, like people that I know and people you know, that do all this tweaking, tuning, and overclocking. So you're going to be able to get that kind of advice and be able to figure out, you know, which PMIC you want to look for, which PCB build type you want to look for, you know, how many layers it is, what ICs it has, all these different things, whether it's, you know, easy to disassemble so you can do liquid nitrogen on it, whatever it may be. Those are all considerations you're going to make. But for everyday users, they don't care about that. Or at least if they feel like they should, I'm going to tell you they probably shouldn't. I mean, unless you're looking to do something crazy for aesthetics, it's not going to matter.
Okay. We're almost to the end here because he's got business he has to handle. I want to know, how much does temperature matter with DDR5? Do I need to really keep these things cool, liquid cool it, or kind of crazy?
You mean like the memory or what part?
The actual RAM itself.
Okay, the RAM, as long as it's got airflow over it, you're pretty much okay. The hottest part on the RAM is going to be the PMIC, which is why we actively cool ours. We have, or not actively, but we actually have a thermal pad that connects it to its external heat spreader. The reason we do that to the heat shields is so that it will transfer that heat away from it. And the cooler you keep that, the more you'll get good voltage stability and good overall performance and overclocking capability. However, if you're setting it for a regular gaming rig and just set it and go, you know, and you're not pushing like, let's say 8,000 megatransfers, let's say you're doing a 7400 kit, it'll get warm, but you'll never really know a difference. You wouldn't know it unless you touch it and go, oh, that's hot, but it doesn't matter. It's kind of like a backplate on a graphics card.
Okay, and you know, I'm too dumb, but a PMIC is, I know what it is, but I just wanted to explain it.
Oh, power management IC. So DDR5, unlike your previous DDR4, DDR3, you used to have, the motherboard would have the little VRM next to the 24 pin on most cases, and it would control your power. It would convert it down to whatever 1.44 volts or 1.45 volts, or whatever that IC, or whatever that DRAM's profile, or whatever you set it for. Now when you set it in BIOS, you have a direct 5 volt feed into the DIMM, and then that PMIC circuit will actually feed outward to the ICs the correct voltage it's supposed to. Matter of fact, we can actually show it right here. This is a PMIC circuit. So basically the 5 volt comes into here, converts out and pushes, let's say, to like 1.1 volt for this specific like JDEC kit, but then also up to, let's say, 1.45, 1.5 volts for like a super high-end kit.
But it does get hot, but it's not so hot you got to freak out about it.
Well, no, because like this one, 1.1 volts, it's not crazy, but it gets warm, but it's not hot enough that it's going to cause stability problems. Otherwise, we'd have a heat shield on it.
Okay.
Where we burn these things in like crazy. If we had a problem with it sitting like that, we would definitely, it would have a solution for it.
Okay, and the last question I have is, how much does the RGB make the RAM go faster?
RGB makes everything faster.
It does, see?
You get like plus 200 RPM on a fan by adding RGB to it. And also, that's why you think RGB undergo kit for cars. Man, we're both car guys, come on.
That's why RGB gets a lot of hate, but you see, it actually works in performance.
Well,
because if I think it's faster, it's faster.
Stickers, 10 horsepower per sticker. Think about this, heat shields, they must add what, 200-300 megatransfers to a kit?
Definitely.
Actually, in some cases, it's actually true because it keeps things cooler. So that actually joke just fell on his face.
Oh no!
Congratulations. You're supposed to screw up like that. How come I did it?
No, I do it. It's a lot because it really is a lot now when you're buying memory, and so I'm trying to come up with a better joke.
I've known you too long. Yeah. this is wrong.
It's getting near the end of Computex, but anyway,
it is?
thank you for that. Well, it's almost for me. I got another day, then I'm on the big bird out of here. So. But anyway,
can I go in your luggage, please?
Yeah,
it's hot here. Help! Send water, please.
Anyway, thanks for coming on, Shannon Robb again. Patriot Memory. You can buy their memory. You don't have to. He's not going to tell you have to, but he would like you to.
Buy what's best for your system, man. If you find something that matches your aesthetic and it's not ours, cool. You know what? As long as you have fun, that's why we do this. We do this so you can have a good time and have, a good running system.
Cool. Thanks, and hopefully we've cleared up a lot of the misconceptions around RAM, because there is a lot to understand. But if you want more awesome coverage from Computex 2023, please come back to PC World channel, click that like and subscribe, and of course go to PCWorld.com for more written content.